So I did some maths and I'm pretty sure I know who's going to be in the final of Strictly Come Dancing 2024. Basically what I did was I took the YouTube views of all of the couples who are still in it so far across every single week so far, and I added them up and I created two scores, one based on how many views they had in total individual and one based on their rankings based on views of each week. On top of finding out who's going to be in the final for Strictly Come Dancing, I've also picked up a couple of interesting kind of points as I did the analysis. I want to look at when people peaked in terms of popularity, because actually it's different across different couples. So first off, we're just taking a look here at Jamie and Michelle. So if we just take a look at the rankings here, 7 is like most popular, 1 is least popular. At the start, they weren't very popular. Then they had about 2 weeks where their popularity was like 1 of the top, and then they went back again to being a little bit lower down on the scale. When that hit of popularity came into play was actually when they did that Paso Doble that I really enjoyed and actually reacted to, and lots of people really very much enjoyed. It got a very high score. I think people were very curious as to them, and so that kind of had a little lagging effect. But I feel like the people then quickly just got a little bit bored of them, or perhaps preferred other couples after that big sort of showpiece that they did. Moving on to Tasha and Aliash. Now they have been top from the start, and they kind of have maintained a middle of the road sort of higher level of views on YouTube. So for me, that is quite telling in terms of popularity, that they have remained pretty consistent, pretty popular with the number of people who want to watch them. Moving on to JB and Lauren. Now, they have definitely been bottom of the road for the majority of the series. I'm surprised that they haven't been kicked out yet. There was 2 weeks where they were actually closer to the top in terms of weeks. But what's interesting is that week 6 was when he was dancing with Amy. He was at the bottom in terms of number of views. However, the following week 7, he was in the 6th sort of ranking place of my ranking system, which just tells me, I think, less about Lauren versus Amy, because it goes back down to 1 again, but more about people's curiosity to be like, oh, he's with a different dancer, I wonder how he's going to do now, or he's with a dancer, is it any better, or maybe just that little bit of excitement, that little bit of change that people wanted to watch and see. So that's sort of my theory as to why the views kind of bumped up quite high after the partner switch, but now it's just sort of dwindled off again, and I think that's just because people have perhaps lost a little bit of interest. The next one I want to look at is Pete and Joita. Now, their scores are all over the place. Some weeks they're high, some weeks they're low, some weeks they're high, some weeks they're low. And I think they are, as a couple, very more controversial than perhaps the rest in terms of their choices, in terms of the kind of the themes that are picked. So that's sort of like a love-hate based on their dance, and I think it varies from week on week, which is why I think you have this big up and down in terms of views. Like some dances really resonate and some of them just don't. And then we're looking at Sarah and Vito now. Sarah and Vito started off sort of middle of the road, a little bit lower, and now they've peaked. Now they've peaked. They are more so people's favourites. And I think what happens as weeks go on, if like the couple you were rooting for then get kicked out, then your vote goes to somebody else. And I think over time, the votes have been going more towards Sarah and Vito. The views have been going more towards Sarah and Vito as other people have been kicked out over time. So I think that's why you're seeing this kind of middle of the road, lower end scale, and then they're increasing again now towards the last, I'd say 4 or so weeks. Their popularity has definitely increased. Montel and Johannes have consistently been low on the popularity scale, on the view scale. There was 1 week where it was high, which was week 5. I believe that was when they did their couple's choice, which was very beautiful, vibrant piece and a nod to their culture, which I think resonated with many people. And that's why on that particular week, they got a very high score. But I think apart from that week, generally speaking, they haven't really been favourites for the general public. And of course, we have Chris and Diane, who have consistently been one of the most popular couples in terms of YouTube views and people wanting to watch them. They've sort of been top out of everybody most weeks. The only weeks that they weren't, Sarah and Vito were. So that was sort of in the last 4 weeks. So that kind of tells you a little bit more information about where people's heads are at, what dances they want to see again, what dances they want to view on YouTube, which ones they think, oh, I'm going to watch that more than once. This kind of gives you a little bit of an idea. So I've kind of tallied up these totals, and I've got two totals. One's for like the physical number of views, like which is this bit up here, and the second one, which is your rankings from 1 till 7. So if we take a look at those, so those are your totals there. And if we take a look at the top 3 based on views alone, so Chris and Diane, Tasha and Aliash, Sarah and Vito, right? And then if you based it on the relative rankings compared to everybody else, so not just the physical number, but the rankings as a whole, you've got Chris and Diane, Sarah and Vito, and Tasha and Aliash. So I think it's pretty safe to say that those will probably be in the final. I think the only way that perhaps they might not be is if Pete and Joeita, because they've been so up and down, so up and down, so up and down, if they pull something out the bag in the next couple of weeks, which really just pushes them to become more of a favourite. So they're sort of like, you know, they could swap places, I think, maybe even with Tasha and Aliash. I think it's safe to say that Chris and Diane will be in the final. I think that's like week after week after week, they've been a fan favourite. So I think it's safe to say that. Sarah and Vito have only recently gained popularity, and Tasha and Aliash have stayed relatively middle of the road. So I think it really depends on the people that are supporting Montel and Johannes, JB and Lauren, Jamie and Michelle, who they will then vote for next. So I think that will determine who will be that second and third place. As it stands, I think we're looking at Chris and Diane, Tasha and Aliash, Sarah and Vito. Maybe Pete and Joeita will squeeze themselves in there, not sure who they would replace. Now the bottom 3, if you think about who's going to go, so based on views, you've got Montel and Johannes, then JB and Lauren, and then Jamie and Michelle. Based on rankings, we've got Jamie and Michelle, Montel and Johannes, and then JB and Lauren. So I think you can probably look at it more in terms of rankings, but also rankings in the last couple of weeks rather than previously. And to be honest, I reckon it will probably be Montel and Johannes in the bottom again, and it would probably be Jamie and Michelle. I wouldn't be surprised if they were in the bottom too, with JB and Lauren following not soon afterwards. So that is who I think will be in the final. Maybe I'll do a video in a couple of weeks' time of who I think will win based on statistics. But let me know who your top 3 are, who you want to see in the final, and if you already have a winner, who your winner is. If you are new here and this is your first time coming to my channel, hello, welcome, my name is Marwa and I do strictly reaction videos and strictly ranking games. You can find them all in this playlist right here. I'll see you over there.